In the lockout-shortened season of 1995, the gauntlet of the Eastern Conference yielded two very different foes. The second-place seed was an up-and-coming powerhouse, making their first playoff run in 6 years, spearheaded by the next generational talent ready to make waves in the NHL. They had a unique mix of size and skill that was the envy of the league. Their opponent, the fifth seed, had no such flair. They were a methodical team that slowed the game down to a crawl, defensively negating every chance that a more skilled opponent could throw at them. Bodies flew, bells were rung, and hopes were dashed. The fifth seed knocked off the second in 6 games after a hard-hitting series and went on to win it all. 5 short years later, there they were again, with the same character and the same outlook. 2 teams orchestrated a rematch on just about the biggest stage there is in hockey. And yet, the scope of the series and the power of each team would be dwarfed by the lasting impact of one fateful play. Though they were 5 years removed from a championship, nobody dared underestimate the Devils. They had the second most points in the East, but because they didn't win their division, the highest they could place was 4th. And it's a shame because their offense was the second most effective in the entire league. Their defense wasn't much further behind, at 7th most efficient. The Devils' makeup was one that most people know, the example of the neutral zone trap defense, which, given the current rules of the game and layout of the rink, slowed pace and scoring down tremendously. And if you're a team that already has good defense, but not a really elite offense, that benefits you devilishly well. For decades, the Devils fit that description, elite system success despite not a lot of high-end offensive talent. Case in point, they had a 1-2-3 punch up the middle at center of Peter Sikora, Bobby Holik, and Scott Gomez. Also sometimes Jason Arnott. All of them are pretty good. I doubt you'd call any of them a great offensive producer, though. And as proof, the team didn't feel the need to rely on any one guy. The average nightly ice time of all 3 of them was about 16 or 17 minutes. One guy who did affect more point production in his career was young buck Patrick Elias. He arrived at the Rock 1 season too late for their 1995 Cup win, but in this, his 3rd full season with the team, he had a breakout year. But equally important, if not more so, is the defense. So many names could have made it here. Ken Danico, a guy who played in every single Devils franchise playoff game to that point, Scott Niedermayer, Brian Rafalski, but who else is going to take this last spot but Scott Stevens? Folks around my age who were too young to have watched him play have probably heard of him as one of the NHL's most vicious, feared hitters. And that's certainly true, but like any reputation, there's so many more miles logged than the few that people remember you for. Scott Stevens played over 1,600 NHL games, and he was widely known as a guts and glory leader who played and led by example. In 2000, he was 5 years abreast of 30 and no longer produced offensively like he did around the turn of the last decade, but he evolved his game and was still just as effective as ever, munching 24 minutes on average per game. Do you think the coaches trusted him? As I said, there are quite a few memorable names on this list that are easy locks for not the Hall of Fame, but the Hall of Very Good, at least. But this is the kind of team that doesn't need to rely on Hall of Famers to get the job done. The team opposite the Devils did have a few now in the Hall, but they weren't having to rely on the biggest name among them. Let me explain. The last season of the millennium would prove to be one of the most tumultuous in the Flyers' 50-plus year history. And then, in March, Captain Eric Lindros was stripped of his captaincy. And this sounds like a decent enough place to transition to the lineup. Eric Lindros had generational talent. He was huge, he could score, and he had quick puck skills that you were more likely to see from a player who had about 1/4 of Lindros' atomic mass. He was such a thrill to watch through the mid-90s, and some say that he challenged Lemieux and Jágr for the best player in the league in that period. However, he had lost the captaincy that March because of an increasingly strained relationship with management. He openly criticized the team's training staff for failing to diagnose a concussion he suffered earlier in the season, and that was his second one in it. Management responded by stripping him of the C. But while Lindros was out indefinitely due to the concussion, who would get his captaincy? It wouldn't be his relatively undersized wingmate Mark Recchi, who was good for 91 points that season, nor the respected veteran forward John LeClaire, who greatly benefited from having Lindros on the team, boasting 3 straight 50-goal seasons after Lindros' arrival. It was actually dual-threat defenseman Eric Desjardins, another respected veteran who had a baller offensive season that year. Brian Boucher, of all people, ended up taking the starter's net from John Van Beesbrook to start the playoffs. It was a gamble, but having played well down the stretch, Craig Ramsey decided to ride with the hot hand. Despite being a less skilled team without the game-breaking of Eric Lindros, the team made up a 15-point gap between them and first place in the East to take the conference crown from the Devils by season's end. The Flyers made short work of the Sabres and then dispatched the arch-rival Penguins in a 6-game series that had enough periods to be 8. The Devils had a similar path through the Panthers and then the Maple Leafs. They wouldn't have to worry about facing any superstars even into the third round, since Eric Lindros would be shelved for at least the first 6 games or so of the series, if it even went that long, or perhaps even further.
Jersey, be quicker than them, use your speed, and we're underway with the Eastern Conference Final.
Yourself.
Here's Randy McKay over the line. Niedermeyer moves up and scores! Scott Niedermeyer, another first-minute goal for the Devils, who did just that in Game 6 against Toronto.
Not much to say here. The Flyers just got caught with 2 back checkers covering 1 forward, and that left Niedermeyer open. It was just a great shot. Tough luck for the Flyers. When you score early and get in the enemy goalie's head, it's usually a good idea to keep him on his quivering toes, just by continuing to pepper him. And the Devils did. After an early penalty kill kept them from going down 2-0, the Flyers took advantage of odd man rushes to make Brodeur sweat instead.
Langkow wheeling in, firing it off the
Mark Recchi waxed this puck about 1 inch off the ground into the open net. I can't really articulate how, but I've always found it way harder to deflect flying pucks that are low rather than like waist height. Either way, it's a tremendously skilled play from Recchi that made it a brand new ballgame. And for the remainder of the first, the Flyers mostly hemmed the Devils in their own zone, simply beating them to races in the corners and forcing turnovers in the neutral zone. It didn't matter.
Tangled up with Desjardins, they go back at it, Arnott levels Desjardins, centers, Sikora scores! Peter Sikora and the Devils regain the lead.
Okay, yes, the defense were soft on the play, both in the corner boards and on the centering pass, but this is a goal Boucher has to stop, especially after the Flyers held the momentum for as long as they did, and things would get worse before they got better.
16 points against the Toronto Maple Leafs in the second round. Here they come again, Breland in front, Holik scores! And New Jersey has a 3-1 lead.
This goal was really similar to the last one. A D-man takes himself out of the play, leaving a guy in the slot wide open. But it is also just a really well triangulated play from the blue line in by the Devils. The Flyers' defense has been backing off from their zone entries, apparently anticipating speed in transition that a few of their players, but only a few, were known for. And to this point, it had bitten them. In the year of our Lord 2000, 2 goals is a lot to overcome, particularly against trap defense. But even particularlier against Martin Brodeur. Could the Flyers' offense do it? The good news is, they had a lot of time to do it.
Now here's Vanderbilt, all loose on the right side, and unable to take the pass off his skate. Zelapuk into Hull, another whack at it. Now Tocchet, head manning and a great pass.
Pause. Do you see what I see? We'll come back to this image.
Up to Primo, cruising at the Devils line, can't break through as McGillis tangled up with Sikora. Here's LeClaire with a shot, rebound. LeClaire can't turn it in. He got in too deep and ran out of room. In front, a tip, and Brodeur's got that. Out at center, LeClaire. Delmore jumps up. Here's a shot. Nice save, Brodeur.
It was undoubtedly frustrating, but intermissions have a way of resetting things to 0. For better, or worse.
He has been a force as he's been throughout the playoffs. Here's Madden breakaway, and Boucher down to make the Hockey save. Pandolfo fired it over the net. McGillney, here's a loose puck turned over. Nepchina, man, Gomez chopped it through the goal crease. McGillney, in front, they score! Klogman Lemieux! And the Devils pad their lead.
And that would pretty much seal it. From then on out, the Devils just played classic trap defense to crawl to a 4-1 Game 1 win. Winning Game 1 of a series has meant less and less as time has gone on, but a quarter century ago, it was bad news if you lost it, especially at home. Some said it was like losing 2 games in a row. But what to change? The main lightning rod for blame was Boucher, but people always blame the goalie. He did fine, while John Van Beesbrook did look appealing for taking the reins from him. Craig Ramsay stuck to his guns, and Boucher would get the start again in Game 2. For a second straight game, the Devils blasted pucks on Boucher early, but he stood tall this time around. In Game 2, the fortunes went the Flyers' way.
Gagne along the boards, back to the point, quick shot, forward and sees! Tocchet at the side of the net, and there's the early goal!
Sure, it was a little goofy being scored off Tocchet's half pirouette, but a goal's a goal.
Here's Recchi with Langkow, taking the drop, walking in Recchi, oh the stop! Did you see that? Brodeur sprawling! Go. Up for McGillney, behind Gomez, Recchi counters, here's Recchi to Leclerc and a shot high. Resulted in a chance. On the other side, Nemchinov to the point, White, shot, and he scored! Scott Gomez with a quick stick, and they tie the game.
But again, a Flyers defenseman overcommits to the half boards. I know this is an A++ deflection, but Gomez can't make it in the first place if Adam Burt stayed on his man. Evidently, the Flyers bent, but they did not break.
Points on the road this year. Here's a 2-on-1. Langkow, Recchi, and Langkow stopped by Brodeur. Penalty is upcoming against Philadelphia. Brodeur on the end, look out!
Where the Flyers' late first period woes haunted them in Game 1, in Game 2, they played their best defense of the young series.
No shots on the power play for New Jersey at the end of the period. Here's a chance for Breland, and Boucher sprawls to make the stop with Breland on the doorstep. A 1-1 tie. Pass picked off. Here's a shot right on Boucher as Sikora let it go. Now to the attack, Arnott. Here's the hot shot scored! Jason Arnott with a blast, and the Devils take the lead.
You could just feel it coming, but Philadelphia kept getting beat on the short changes and backing off the Devils' counterattack. New Jersey had been shooting on Boucher almost exclusively from up high. This one's not on Boucher though, that deflection is just stinky. But again, the Flyers didn't let it bug them. They kept taking it to Brodeur, again controlling the balance of play. And then for one weird minute in the second, it was suddenly all Devils.
Stevens shot wide off the end boards. Tough rebound, and Nemchinov fires it, and he didn't miss by much.
Maybe he'll try to score first before he gets off because they have good possession.
Gomez one-handing it in front again, bouncing puck. McGillney's on it, trying to get it to Nemchinov off the skate of Therrien. And this line of the Gomez, Nemchinov, and McGillney buzzing again. Now Recchi outlets, and he was cut off at the pass by Niedermeyer. Otherwise, it was a break. Here comes McGillney. Stopped and started, and now Nemchinov back to McGillney, tied up. Langkow might have saved the scoring chance. McGillney again! Oh, and Gomez missed the pass. Alex McGillney is a handful right now, again in front. Oh, Nemchinov just missed for the Flyers.
Somehow the Flyers just survived them, but right as it looked like they'd make it a game again.
Here's Iliad with Sikora. Patrick Iliad scores!
At this juncture, you'd be forgiven for thinking that this might be a very short series. The Devils just had that X factor that sunk their chances when they got them, and the Flyers didn't. The Flyers ended the period with an abysmal power play that did nothing to make us think that this 3-1 deficit would turn out any different than the last one. But in the final minute of the second period, the Flyers scored. Captain Eric Desjardins with 39 seconds left from Tocchet and Zelepukin. But I don't have the footage for it. I've got the footage for this game on 2 discs. The last frame of the first disc has 43.6 seconds left on it in the second period. I missed it by 4 seconds. Oh well, so going into the third, they're only down 1. And soon, not even that.
The Devils zone gets it in front. They score! Rick Tocchet!
Rick Tocchet became the beneficiary of all three of Keith Primeau's forecheck, Sergei Nemchinov's failed backcheck, and Martin Brodeur turning into a sieve out of the freaking blue to take the lead for the Flyers. And in due course, the Flyers finally found their scoring magic.
From the supporting cast, here comes Langkow, shooting right on, rebound, tied again, I think.
Initially, people thought Rick Tocchet had his third goal of the night, but on further review, the puck just ricocheted off Colin White. But you know he's content either way.
Burnett got a piece of him, but the Flyers will skeet away. Recchi dancing on the right wing with Langkow on the left side. Oh, a big hit there as Langkow was leveled inside the Devils' line, and he's very slow to get up. And Damon Langkow, who has 2 assists tonight, doesn't remember either one right now.
It's a massive hit if it needed any kind of classification. But let's look at this scene. Does this look familiar? It's exactly the same scenario that almost transpired 1 game prior, as Keith Primeau cut to the middle on Rafalski and Stevens. Primeau was a bit too ahead of Stevens, and Stevens didn't have enough foot speed to really catch him at a good angle, but for all intents and purposes, it's the same play. Why would either player try this? Cutting to the middle is inviting danger anyway, regardless of whether or not it's Scott Stevens on your weak side. Well, I think it's specifically because Brian Rafalski is a defenseman on the slider side. Larger guys see him and think, hey, I can probably get around him. But don't think that Scott Stevens, or Brian Rafalski for that matter, don't know that. Rafalski is going to use that to his advantage to lay out some bait. If the Flyers forwards are jaws taking the bait, Scott Stevens is an M1 Garand. It goes without saying, but Langkow would be done for the night, and potentially longer. But the Flyers still had a game to close out. But tempers started to boil over, and matching minors were handed out. Depending on the player trade-off, such things either directly harmed the Devils' comeback efforts, or the Flyers' shutdown efforts.
And is Alex McGillney flicking the shot right on, Boucher the save, and the rebound comes out to LeClaire. Every scrum key, Tocchet again, in front, Brodeur the stop!
The way the Flyers played with the lead was infinitely cooler than the Devils' trap method. Philly went absolutely balls to the wall, and I think I speak for everyone when I say that is infinitely more fun to watch than trap defense.
Here's a shot, Boucher covers up, here's Claude Lemieux with Primeau sprawling, here's a centering pass across, a backhand Ilion, Boucher got a glove on it. Recchi up the boards, out to LeClaire at center. John LeClaire is going to kill the time, and backhanded down the ice, just wide. Doesn't matter now, the Flyers have tied this Eastern Conference Final at a game apiece.
But all the same, the win came at the cost of their most deployed center. Damon Langkow, who was good for 50 points on the season, would miss a few games. In one sense, it was good news that it wasn't longer, given the severity of the hit. Keith Primeau and Simon Gagne moved up the lineup to try and plug the gap, but with Lindros already out, and now Damon Langkow, the Flyers trundled into Game 3 sporting a black eye. On to the Devils' arena, where they had not won in 3 years. If they were to win back home ice advantage, 3 years would need to be history.
Boy, is it ever nice to see you, Eric Lindros of the Philadelphia Flyers. And all it took was a Hockey Night in Canada
there you
towel,
go, right there.
How are you doing? What's the situation?
I feel great. I've haven't felt better in a number of weeks, and things are moving along real well. Started skating in today, and we started at 0, and we're working our way up, and it's going to be quick. We're going 2 days, and see where it lands.
I know that the concussion thing has played a large role in your family's history, what with Brett and so on. And perhaps you're here to speak to that we have to be very careful with this injury.
Well, it's something that I think was taken too lightly in the past, and it's unfortunately with the circumstances it's gained more attention, and people are starting to realize that this is something that deserves much more attention. And there's been a lot of different organizations that have put forth a real strong message, not just in our league, but in minor soccer and minor hockey, other sports where these occur as well. So I think the word's getting out.
the Devils bench.
So the big question is, will Larry Robinson keep Brule on the ice with that line in that role?
The Flyers nearly affected on Brodeur what the Devils did on Boucher in Game 1.
Low penalty game. Brodeur had trouble as that one nearly snuck through. And Martin Brodeur has had trouble with the first 2 shots sent his way. Sikora turns it back. Malakoff missed it, and Recchi will counter. 2-on-1. Recchi and Leclaire. Stevens back. Leclaire back to Recchi. The backhand scores! Mark Recchi under Brodeur for an early Flyer goal.
This is kind of a stinker for Brodeur. After Leclaire whiffed on his chance, the Flyers didn't really deserve to get a shot off, much less score here. Maybe the killer instinct of the Devils had now changed allegiances.
Malakoff, who was on the ice, good hands to Lemieux, scores!
Once again, the Devils take advantage of blown coverage by the Flyers' defense. Props to Lemieux, though. This is a glorious shot, right over the shoulder at just the right point to cuff Boucher. With that goal, they wrested all momentum away from the Flyers, and the fans were feeling it. But such is hockey that all you need to lose momentum is one shot against.
And Tocchet with it. Tocchet with a nice pass. Primo barging in. Loose puck and back. Jones scores! Keith Jones on the follow-up. And the Flyers regain the lead.
The Zebras conferred around the water hole for a second to weigh in on the potential for goalie interference, but I don't really get why. Brodeur had no shot. He was sliding left and the puck was going right. Keith Jones did what every God-fearing hockey player should and went right to the net for table scraps. And for his part, Boucher made sure that the Devils wouldn't quickly respond again.
82 goals in 82 games in the regular season. Here's Sikora! Robbed by Boucher! Gomez turns back again, takes the shot. Rebound McKay and Boucher there, and he'll smother the puck with 30 seconds.
On an early second period power play, the Flyers got some great triangulation going, but never found Twine.
Double wide of the net. Next passing play, but look out! Here's Elias on a break, short-handed. Oh, what a stop! Did you see that? An amazing save! Tocchet like again. They can't beat Boucher.
Patrick Elias not scoring one-on-one against the goalie. Where have I heard this before? But seriously though, the acrobatics on Boucher to wave his arm around behind him and seal off ice level in one motion in the split second that he did is just tremendous athleticism. The helmet flying off was just the icing on the cake for how baller this save was. It was the save of the series, and it was only Game 3. Many call it the save of the 2000 playoffs. And his comrades would repay him in kind.
Knocked down at the line, and Primo will turn back. Tocchet loose right side. Here's Tocchet pounding it, scoring! Rick Tocchet's done it again!
Man, this is another weak goal from Brodeur, but it all happens because of Pandolfo's weak giveaway at the attacking blue line. All 3 forwards circle back around just kind of slowly as the giveaway happens, and their defense is headed off for a change. That leaves Rick Tocchet wide open on the right side, and the way he's played this series, he's the last Flyer the Devils want to have that kind of look. Riding off their first 2-goal lead of the series, the Flyers even took liberties against their opponent's Black Knight.
Off the boards, and Leclaire and Stevens collide, and Leclaire gave Stevens the cold shoulder. Here's White overskating the puck, taking a hit from Tocchet. Here's Tocchet trying to tuck it in on the short side.
The Devils hardly got any shots in the final half of the second period, but coming into the third, they no doubt remembered that last game. They blew a 3-1 lead in the final period, so they might as well try to be on the right side of that turnaround this time.
Following is Breland, looking for Niedermeyer in front of the net. Malik and Niedermeyer a shot, and Boucher makes a solid stop here in the third. Sikora, his shot off the glove, rebound Niedermeyer, stop by Boucher. And Scott Niedermeyer moved up.
The Devils got into the Flyers' zone seemingly without resistance, but once there, they did nothing with the puck, and the Flyers just cruised it back down the ice time after time. But to their credit, the Devils didn't let it get them down.
Got away, bounced up on him, Sikora fired and rebound.
Well, nothing really went wrong on the Flyers' part here. The redirection from Sikora's blocked shot just found the tape of Niedermeyer right there, and Boucher couldn't really adjust in time. He got about 90% of the shot anyway, but not enough. One more to tie. With another goal in the final minutes, the Devils could flip the script.
To Niedermeyer. Clubbed down by McGillis, right back out after taking the puck in the face of Gagne. As the puck uses that speed, and Rafalski scores! What a goal by the rookie Gagne!
Believe you me, it is a treat to see 21st century players just out-hustle clutch and grab era teams. And it's also pretty special to see Simon Gagne really have a standout moment in what would be a pretty successful career. This goal is all effort. It would be the backbreaker. The Flyers won 4-2 and took the series lead 2-1. The Devils were one period away from going up 2-0 in this series heading home, but after blowing that 3-1 lead in Game 2, now they were here, with only one mulligan left. The Devils were now behind the 8-ball, losing home ice advantage just as quickly as they'd gained it. They'd need some kind of response to prevent the series from getting out of control. The Flyers got the W, but a lot of their players took some pretty rough beatings, errant sticks, flying pucks, and the like all game long. The embattled Flyers fought through them all to do so, at least on that night. So, for this game, I found 3 different versions of footage. One that's only the first half of the game with no audio, one that's in Russian, and one that's only the third period, but everything else is perfect. So we're going to look at all 3. Once again, within mere seconds of opening puck drop, the Devils tested Boucher. Their tight play in the neutral zone ensured that the Flyers had no sustained ozone time, and I mean no time. The Devils certainly drove play in the first half of the opening period, and were probably unlucky to not get at least one. Eventually, the Flyers did manage to turn the tide somewhat, but it seemed more like a cosmic regression to the mean than any real changing of the guard. And despite this team not really dictating anything throughout the game, Boucher continued to pull more than his weight, stoning Sergei Brylin on what was nearly a one-on-one short side. A bouncing puck from Niedermeyer threatened to squeeze past, but he somehow fought that one off too. But it can all be undone by one bad play. Martin Brodeur gives the puck away behind the net to Simon Gagne, who fires it right back at him. Somehow Brodeur doesn't get any of it, and his team is down 1-0. Terrible goal by him all around. Now on to the Russian footage. Again, the Devils came right out of the gates trying to take Boucher's head off, but he held the line. He really started to create daylight in the MVP conversations between himself and, well, everyone else. But while Boucher was winning the battles, Brodeur kept his save percentages afloat by making some timely stops on Philly's counterattacks. When he wasn't taking stupid penalties anyway. A tripping minor would stave off New Jersey's counterpunch for a bit longer. But when New Jersey finally did get on the board, they did so in style. And then the Flyers tried to beat their faces in. Unfortunately, such an endeavor is not known for unscoring goals. Interestingly enough, Holik actually got a penalty afterwards for running into Boucher, and yeah, he definitely didn't do anything to avoid him. Weren't pushed or nothing. There then occurred a lovely slice of fire wagon hockey.
Контратака Рекки. Ах, хоккей пошел какой, а?
Завелись.
Секуру не удалили, хотя он поддержал соперника. Вновь Эляш. Пас назад. Бросок. Эляш оказывается на льду и не может шайбу добить, и контратака Филадельфии. Марк Рекки. Вот это отрезок.
4-4.
Опять 3-2. Ошибается Дежарден, и можно опять отыграть соперников. Но у кого сил-то у первого кончится, что уже вышел Арнольд. Передача не точна. Включается Малахов из неудобной руки, бьет мимо.
Shortly thereafter, John LeClair got the idea into his head that he was going to make all 5 of the Devil skaters on the ice his whipping boys. Unfortunately, he could not beat the 6th. Despite another heart-stopping, puck-bouncing, nearly a back-breaking goal for the Devils late, the wide-open second period ended only 1-1. Thank you all for your patience. Now here's the footage we've been waiting for.
LeClair winding up. Back in. LeClair barging through! Oh, what a stop by Brodeur! Here comes Andy Delmore in. Takes the shot, and Brodeur stops that. Cross. Ricochets to the line. McGillis, wrist shot. Score!
You know, on the broadcast, the crew was suggesting that Berube redirected this in front, and his body language sure makes that seem feasible, but my eyes are telling me that it just knuckles into the net. If that's the case, that's another one Brodeur's gotta have. Regardless, the Flyers knew that one goal was not enough to sit back. so they went for it all.
Waiting for Tocchet. Tocchet to Jones, and he redirected wide.
Interesting, the workers in this game are the ones doing all the damage.
Here's Recchi to Leclerc. Gagne in front. Knocked away by Malakoff. Desjardins steps up. In front. They score! Simon Gagne!
Another boo-boo by Brodeur would cause a butterfly effect that came full circle on Simon Gagne's tape in the slot. For the second straight game, he put away the Devils. It was an unfortunate end for New Jersey, who had actually outplayed the Flyers, particularly in the first half of the game. Philadelphia had won 3 games of 4. New Jersey won. In the conference final, no team had ever rallied from a 3-1 deficit to win. Would the Flyers be able to close out the Devils, taking advantage of spotty goaltending and clutch production from a wounded forward core? The answer? I don't know, because I cannot find live footage of Game 5 to save my life. The best I can do is this recap footage from the next game, so obviously the Flyers don't close them out. Put plainly, the Devils blitzed the Flyers in the first period, doubling them up in shots and infinitying them up in goals. One each from Jason Arnott, a laser on the power play, and Bobby Holik, who was Bobby Holik. 2 goals is already a pretty big gap for any team to overcome against the 20th Century Devils, but 3-0, courtesy of Peter Sikora? It's basically lights out. The Flyers made it a bit more respectable play-wise, but a first-minute third-period goal from 9-year-old Patrick Elias squelched any hope of a comeback. But a comeback on that night would have been the end of the world for the Devils. A loss for the Flyers only meant that they had 2 more shots to eliminate New Jersey and move on to the Stanley Cup Finals. And right when they needed a bit more juice offensively, they welcomed back into the fold, at long last, their golden gunner.
The Arnott line for New Jersey. Start for the Devils here, a shot off the side of the net.
One can't help but wonder how the series would have gone to this point if they had converted on these early game chances as they did in Game 1. Ditto for the Flyers.
And that's the first chance for the Flyers as they buzz. Jones! A shot went wide. Gillis holds his man up, and Lemieux runs McGillis into the end boards. Up with a puck in front. Oh, blast high by John Madden. And there is Lindros, the E-train back in service here in New Jersey. And out comes Philadelphia. There's Leclerc at the line. John Leclerc fired at the slide. This Tocchet along the boards. Now Primo in the corner. Centers. Tocchet to the net. Brodeur down. And Jones couldn't find the rebound.
For his part, Lindros was right in it from the get-go, winning face-offs, throwing his body around. The little wins that, at least my experience, help you shake off the rust more quickly. There was a terrific energy and pace to the first period, and despite the bevy of opportunities, the wide world was robbed of a red light, mainly due to great last-second defensive blocks or deflections by both teams.
3 by the Flyers. Here's McGillney dropping it off. Gomez, the trailer, and a hot shot. Oh, that hit Boucher in the mask. And Brian Boucher.
In the dying minutes of the first, Gomez uncorked a snapshot right into the gap in Brian Boucher's face mask. Fortunately, he seemed none the worse for wear, though, and had his AHL mask on standby. Pretty neat. And to start the second, you'd never tell that he was hurt.
Over 8 minutes apiece in the first period. Niedermeyer shot, rolling in front of the net. Back to Malakoff, firing it right on. And Boucher with a glove stop.
The second period was unfortunately a lot more lethargic than the first. Not because of any dead puck era clutch and grabbery, more just everyone seemed a little off. Something that didn't change was Philly's minor injury conga line continued, with Shane McGillis taking Claude Lemieux's stick halfway up his nasal cavity.
Looking for some room, gave it away. Holik from center. Bobby Holik in. Boucher down to make the save.
The Flyers weren't getting any breaks, and the Devils were. Martin Brodeur faced 2 shots in that second period, and only 6 to that point in the game. He was in a rocking chair, and he didn't wake up in time for the buzzer.
From the draw, Recchi back to Desjardins. Lindros in front. Scores, but the horn had gone. Lindros on the rebound, but the horn had gone before that second shot went over Martin Brodeur.
This is what English people call dashed infernal luck. What better pick-me-up could there have been for Eric Lindros coming back into the lineup other than a last-second ice-breaking goal to put his team up in an elimination game? Brodeur and the Devils got bailed out big time by regulation periods not being a half-second longer. A brutal break for the Flyers and for Lindros in particular, but they still had an equal chance of winning the game and moving on.
Trying to cause some havoc. Loose in front of Kelly. Oh, he shot 3 feet wide. Kelly against Delmore. Steve Kelly with a shot, and Boucher knocked it down. Here's Sikora. Sikora! The horn's gone. 88's on the ice. Sensing a chance. Powering in front of Brodeur. But Delmore gets back. Lemieux up with it. Holik moves up. His shot blocked. Rebound in front of the net. Lemieux scores! Claude Lemieux!
It's easy to dislike Claude Lemieux, but throughout his career, even now in his mid-30s, he had a propensity for being at the right place at the right time and scoring clutch goals. His latest installment, this third-period marker, put the Devils 8 and change minutes away from forcing a Game 7.
And Sikora race after the puck. Sikora in front! Oh, what a stop! Boucher, Elias, and it's chipped wide by Arden. What a sequence! And we almost saw the Snow Angels save once again.
With full confidence, I can say that this is my favorite sequence in playoffs past to date. The incredible windmill pad save by Boucher, Elias whacking it out of midair only to hit the post, Arnott diving for a third consecutive shot attempt and just sending it wide. It doesn't get better than that madness. That glorious balls-to-the-wall zaniness that can only be found in mad scramble hockey. If the Flyers were going to win this game, they would owe it all to Brian Boucher.
Madden shovel it right back in behind. There's Breland with the steal. For all of Boucher's 10 bell saves in this game and this series, you can only do so much to offset defensive collapses. And Alex Mogilny, really snakebit to this point, finally got his just rewards. But no professional team gives up, no matter how little time is left on the clock. Lindros pumped by Stevens. Holy takes out Recchi. Lindros scores! Eric Lindros with 30 seconds to go!
This is just great hockey sense. Lindros doesn't even have to look. He just senses the soft pocket in the slot and puts it in reverse, opening up to the pass, and that shot. Oh, man. Barred down, and Brodeur wasn't even looking above the goal line. Lindros gave the Flyers hope with little time, but time all the same. In the end, though, there just wasn't enough of it. It was a series that took blood and sweat from the Flyers and tears from the Devils, and it was going to gray their hairs further. The Flyers would host the winner-take-all game. Remember, they had overcome a 15-point deficit behind the Devils in the standings, effectively to have home ice in this game. It wasn't the Stanley Cup Finals, but within the context of the rematch, the physical size of the players, the skill on display, heck, even the bright colors of their uniforms, this series was a grand spectacle. And after the night of May 26th, in the first year of our new millennium, it would all be over. The Flyers knew full well that shot volume had been an issue for them, so they targeted Brodeur early, though long-distance slap shots aren't really the remedy for that. But it's a first step.
Nice little pass for Keith Jones. Jones is in, spun around, makes the pass, and Andy Delmore shot it over the net.
Oh man, I always say, early missed chances are the biggest what-ifs in the playoffs. And Andy Delmore is the poster child for that, lasering this platinum opportunity straight to heaven. No chance. But credit to the Flyers, they were walking all over the Devils in the first few minutes. They just couldn't get the tape-to-tape looks that undoubtedly would have dented the twine had they connected. And at the far end, Boucher was rock solid as well.
Finds Alexander McGillney. McGillney rips one. And a glove save by Brian Boucher. And Rafalski unable to keep it in. Rafalski is pressured, takes a pop to the face from Keith Jones.
Keith Jones committed a completely senseless roughing penalty on Brian Rafalski, and his squad would pay for it.
By Elias in front as Elias is being taken down. Here's Holy, down low, shot, score! There it is, the power play goal! Patrick!
We hadn't seen it in a while, but the Flyers D got pulled out of the box, and the high forward never really picked up Elias, leaving him wide open to blast it in. A really, really tough place to see that problem crop up again, especially since the first team to score in each game had won each game. But unlike prior games, this time the Flyers had a game breaker in Eric Lindros, and he was more than eager to lead the counterattack.
Get out of his own skates, turnover at center. Here's 88, Lindros makes the move, and Lindros is hammered down to the ice by Scott Stevens. And Lindros remains down on the ice as all the other players come together.
Oh boy. Oh boy. This is the worst case scenario here for Eric Lindros.
Without peer, and in no uncertain terms, this is the most devastating, history-altering hit in the 21st century. And in equally certain terms, by the rules of today's NHL, this is a dirty hit. Stevens doesn't take a good angle. He catches Lindros right in the head, no question. There's about 5 frames of nothing moving but the head. In 2000, it was technically a clean hit, but I would argue that head hits should always have been outside of the rules. Now, Stevens isn't trying to injure Lindros, but he's not there to be his friend either. This is a full-force, intentional hit, and it was only possible because of 4 different factors, which we've already seen. 1, an undersized defenseman caught flat-footed, driving the puck carrier to the middle. 2, a back checker pressuring the puck carrier or otherwise making a play on the puck, causing 3, the puck carrier to lock up and focus downwards on the puck while being funneled towards and to the middle. And 4, Scott Stevens just being an immovable object at the end of the line. Honorable mention number 5, at the time of the hit, Scott Stevens had only been on the ice for about 2 seconds. Up top here is Ken Danico, and obviously the other D is Niedermeyer, but when we pan back, the left D is now Stevens, with Danico just shutting the bench door behind him. It's highly likely that when Lindros last has his head up, there's only one defenseman on the ice, and the whole rink to the right of Niedermeyer is wide open. If Scott Stevens drives through Lindros squarely in the shoulder, it is a thunderous, clean hit in any era. But would that have injured Lindros, knocking him out of the game, robbing the Flyers of their franchise player? Because that's what happened. If Scott Stevens hit or did not hit Eric Lindros in any other way than straight through the head, something, there's no telling what, would have changed in NHL history. Lindros had a history of concussions from big hits, 5 in the last 2 years alone. And this was only his 2nd game back in the lineup. Never mind his professional career, his personal long-term health was going to be called into question. And there's no doubt that his career, while less important, would forever be altered. I'll expand on this later, but for now, just like the Flyers' predicament, there's a game to finish. Understandably, they look like they were just a half step behind. It's not something you consciously think about when you're out there, but a teammate's injury can still affect you.
The defenseman on for the Devils. Here's Lancaster, centering feed shot, stopped by Brodeur!
Oh, what a save!
Just in case you thought the Flyers might start to have a normal game, Kent Manderville took a pretty wicked high stick from Elias, adding to the ledger of Flyers nicked up, but it sent Philly to the power play.
Centering feed shot, stopped by Brodeur! And a pretty quick whistle there.
The Devils seemed determined to start the second by doubling their lead.
Brian Boucher, guarded from the other side, nearly off Terrian and in. Centering feed, and Breland couldn't tee it up. Here's Harden. Oh, and the one-timer is fanned on by McGillney. Plays every position, plays every side, too, Packer. Long shot, tip, shot, stopped by Renault. Rebound in!
This is basically the poster child for playoff goals. John LeClair, who hadn't found the score sheet but was playing really well, caused enough of a cyclone in the crease to upset Stevens' man-puck coverage, and he's just beat to the loose puck by the lightning-fast stick of Tocchet. Just like he'd done in Game 2, he was re-energizing the Philadelphia crowd when they needed it the most, and it almost catapulted them to a lead.
And the goaltender doesn't see him on.
Turnover now, short-handed here are the Flyers inside the zone. McGillis shot in smooth traffic. Here's Adam Burnham deep. He's cut off there by Arnott. And Elias gets to it for New Jersey. Hands it right to Philadelphia. Here's McGillis, the ball right on, and Brodeur the save.
Even when they were shorthanded, they still dictated play.
For Niedermayer's shot. Oh, glove save by Brian Boucher with the outstretched arm. And Claude Lemieux was right there. Oh, and a heavy-duty hit. Niedermayer is flattened there by Richardson. 2 and 5 as the hits just keep on coming. Here's John LeClair, the rocket. What did that hit? Headman Pans, he's Gagne with a step. Oh. And a shot and a save by Martin Brodeur. Recovers it in the corner, deep in his own end. Turns it over though to Jones. Shot trickled through the crease. Spun around, the crowd urging for a penalty call. Here's Jones, back here, through the crease. And LeClair couldn't tee it up. Flyers had all of Game 6. Here's Gagne's shot. Oh, the glove save.
But despite their efforts, the second period ended in a tie. How else was it going to end?
And the Flyers have tied it up at 1.
Nifty move at center. Here's Jason Arnott. Little drop pass. Backhand shot. Arnott! Shot it wide. We're starting to get late in the third. Here's a chance. One-timer right on. And Brian Boucher the save. For the playoffs. Here's Lankow. Centering feed through to Craig Berube and Lankow. And Lankow loses it now and puts it in on his own goalie. Brian Boucher. Far side Stevens. Towards the front of the net. It's deflected wide. McGillney. Arnott trying to tee up. Shot, score! It's Patrick Elias with 2:32 left in the third. And the Devils have taken a 2-1 lead. They're 2.5 minutes away from advancing to the Stanley Cup Finals.
As much of a deal as I've been making about the Flyers' role in giving up goals, this one is all the Devils. Alex McGillney had been stuck out on a long shift, but he grinded out just a few more seconds in the O-zone to set up Jason Arnott, and off the shanked shot, Elias makes a superb play to lift McGillis' stick and sweep the puck around to the net all in one motion. The Devils were 2.5 minutes away from being the first conference final team ever to overcome a 3-1 series deficit.
Stevens, Lankow pushes it to the corner. Delmore's in deep. Final minute of play. Regulation time, and it's poke free. The net is empty. Simon Devils over. He's on in. Can't keep it in. 7 seconds left. Terry from the blue line. Blocker down by Martin Brodeur. And that is it. For the first time since expansion, a team has rallied back from a 3-1 series deficit. After the second round of the playoffs, the New Jersey Devils win 3 straight to end it. They defeat the Flyers here in Philadelphia 2-1, and the Devils are going.
The way this series ended seemed like it was all over very suddenly. There have been last-minute goals before, but for some reason, it seemed like the rug got pulled out from under you this time. And it may have been because in this case, some things were bigger than just this game. I'm talking, of course, about Eric Lindros. At the time, spectators only really had to worry about his health, but 24 years later, we know the effect this hit had on him. First of all, this would have been his 6th recorded concussion. He was 26. But he didn't play until 2002 after this hit because of that strained relationship with Flyers management, because they allegedly mishandled his injury recoveries. He sat out the 0-1 season, stubborn for a trade. Thus, this would be the last game he ever played as a Flyer. And the lesser career that he finished out was a shame to see because with his massive frame connected to his near-generational scoring ability, Lindros kind of redefined what people believed a hockey player could be, combining never-before-seen talent and physicality. It's something that's only ever been challenged by Jerome McGinley and Alex Ovechkin. And the poster child for reasons why that career was stunted is Scott Stevens. Stevens has a polarizing reputation to this day. To some, he's an old-school Hall of Fame defenseman that played the game the classic way, the right way. To others, he's a dirty hitter who crippled the careers of multiple superstars. Neither are correct in their entirety. Neither tell the whole story. But there's truth in each of them. At the end of the day, he was just here to play, and to play hard. But while the hit meant so much to the hockey world, it does this series as a whole a massive disservice to only focus on that. Brian Boucher had a phenomenal series, and were it not for some really brutal breakdowns against, there's little doubt in my mind that the Flyers win this series. And he outplayed Martin Brodeur, who had a rare clunker of a series. The Flyers took a heavy, heavy beating in this series, and it was just too much to overcome. The Devils, on the other hand, overcame a 3-1 series deficit, the first conference finalist to do so. And no team has done it since. It's an achievement owned solely by the 2000 New Jersey Devils. It's just a shame that out of the ashes of this series that was fraught with danger, with excitement, with intrigue, that there is one great blemish on it. For some, it's a trophy. For some, it represents pure hockey. But for one man, it represented the beginning of the end. But I hope, on balance, that he is happy with all the time that he did get to spend on the ice, and all the love that he put into the game. And I hope he realizes that his impact on this league will never, ever be forgotten. A sincere and heartfelt thank you to all of my patrons, especially Amazing Kook 143, Eric Sheldon, Ethan Johnson, Infernos Gaming, Jacob Keefe, Jules, Nate, Pierre O'Connor, Pylon Zinn, Steely Dan 32, and Stuckmund.